I think so, mate, yeah. I'm assuming so. I haven't got a clue, to be honest. I haven't asked.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of the Supreme Pool series. This is losers round 1. What a matchup! I mean, on another day, this could be a final. It's between two stalwarts of the IPA, Neil Raybone and Craig Marsh. Incredible game. With the bookies, I think they had Neil Raybone as the slight favourite. I think it was 8-11. I think Craig Marsh was 11-10, somewhere around there. That's how they price it. It's an interesting way to start the day, but as we mentioned yesterday, the losers' side is now absolutely littered. Incredible. There's been some scenes this morning already. Max Norsko playing Mark Farnsworth. In the 9 o'clock session, Max was 7. It was certainly 7-4. He might have been 7-3. He was always in charge of the game, and somehow at 7-6 down, Mark Farnsworth, I think he's missed a straight black and it's rattled in one, gone across and covered another bag, and then a little succession of errors from either player. Saw Mark get on the hill, and Max has broken the deciding frame and gone straight off the table and left ploppins for Mark. So Greg Batten was having kittens because he bought Mark Farnsworth in the Calcutta for about £4,000. So he was enjoying that result. Anyway, this is the 10:45 session. It's nice to have a bit of a later start today. I almost got a lie-in. Absolute pleasure. Neil seeing no advantage in trying to attack from there, so he's taking the bag. May see a DF here from Craig. The reason I say it is because while these yellows are still tied up on the side rail, it's probably not a bad time to play it. The only thing is he obviously can't just drop it in because he's going to leave a foul snooker. So yeah, he's decided against that. I think probably for that very reason. If he could, because he couldn't drop it in, he had to play out into space, and he can't leave it safe. Neil would have had some kind of attacking option to try and clear that area. So he's tried to cover this bottom bag, not done so effectively, and now Neil is completely in charge. He's taken both pockets, and this is going to be really difficult for Craig. Craig knows the rules pretty well. I know he's been practicing a lot of world rules with Ben Davis recently, so again, not the greatest of shots. Neil's got a path below those reds, to be able to get to that yellow, so it's not really, there's no goalkeepers there. So lots of other games going on around the arena. You can keep up to date with any of the scores via qscore.com. Ben Tanner currently 3-1 up against Martin Hazel. Martin Hazel was favourite to win that. Josh Kane beating Neil Wren 2-1. Liam White, Sean Story 2 each. Seb Webb back in action. That's currently 2-all. Brian Halcrow 1 up on Ryan Fleming. Carl Bedford 4-2 down on Ross Smith. Scott Gillespie 3-0 up on Matt Schofield. Matt Brearley 3-1 down on Dean Wilson. And Jez Graham 2-1 up against Matt Attersoy. So yeah, qscore.com if you want to see any of those scores throughout the day. But we're focused on Neil Raybone and Craig Marsh.
10 seconds.
So joined on commentary now by Gaz Potts. Morning, Gaz.
Morning.
Fresh back from a flight from China. When did you get back?
Well, I don't know about fresh, but back, yeah. I've been back a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good trip?
Yeah, good trip. I played in a tournament, one of the qualifying events, and I lost in the last 16. So, yeah, not the result I wanted, but I played quite well, to be honest. There was almost 400 runners in it. Actually, I think there was 384 players that started. So, and
is that normal? Big fields over there?
yeah, it is. Yeah, I think this one was a bit bigger than normal, but I think they're always around the sort of 300. And so yeah, I had to start from the beginning as well, from stage one. So because I don't play any of the qualifying events, so I couldn't get a seeded spot. So.
Yeah.
But I played quite well, to be honest, all the way through. I had a really tough draw, and to be honest, on paper,
yeah, I saw you on the stream in the week. You seem to be doing pretty good.
The guy who I lost to on paper should have been one of the easier Chinese guys I played, but to be honest, he played really well. I couldn't make a ball off the break, and he deserved to win. So, but still, it was good match practice, and build up to the Masters is what it was about really for me. But so yeah, just back in time. And I was just watching the start of this frame out in the arena before I sat down, and unfortunately at World Rules, when the balls sort of go a little bit scrappy from the break, there's no option other than to play the frame like this, because there's no sort of way of forcing it really. Sometimes you have to cover the pocket, and when you or your opponent's got the pocket covered, then you are in massive control, and sometimes it's just like a patient thing where you just have to wait. And
I think it's the third tactical frame we've seen on this stream table. Must have streamed close to 100 frames. So.
Oh, that's great. So that's my first one.
Yeah. The first one you're covering, and it's Yeah, I mean, there were no attacking options early doors, so Neil doing the right thing and covering a couple of bags. But Craig's done fairly well already, just to get himself back into this frame.
Well, he's not only back into it; he's a huge favourite now on Reds.
Yeah, there was a point where it looked like he couldn't win it, so he's done a really good job.
And that's why being tactically good at World Rules is so important, because you do get some of these frames, and it is important to be tactically aware, because you know you can turn frames around at World Rules. And although Craig wouldn't have played much World Rules, he's seems to have done a decent job in this frame.
Yeah, I think he's been practicing quite a lot. Him and Ben Davis.
I grew up playing through the junior ranks with Neil, and you know, we grew up playing World Rules. Obviously, he hasn't played World Rules for a number of years now, playing on the RPA. But when we did used to play World Rules, he was one of the better tactical players. That was definitely one of the strong parts of his game. But it is hard when you've been out for a while. You do sort of lose a few shots and effectively become, against someone that is tactically very good, you can become a shot behind sometimes.
I was saying a minute ago, I mean, on another day, this could be a final. He's going to do it.
You know what? I was
do
just.
it again,
You know what? Right? I was just going to say that Neil is definitely one of the best doublers of balls that there is, and
Yeah.
you can see there he's played 2 trebles, potted 1, and to be fair, he's played a really good shot. But
Should be fairly easy for. Well, I mean, he's got a couple of options here, hasn't he?
he has got 2 options. He either covers the back pocket or he just comes off the side rail and kicks his ball across to cover it.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Well, yeah, I can understand why he did that, but I think side rail first and kick it back into the
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 reason
back pocket.
the reason I don't like that shot is because he can play the back double now, and if he does play the back double and cover the pocket, he's sort of back in the frame. Doesn't want it in.
No. Yeah, that's not what he was looking for. So, Craig has to attack from here.
He does. He's not guaranteed to land on one, though. You'd expect him to be on one, but yeah, he's played that nice.
Yeah, played that really well. Okay. Did you catch any of the first game?
No, I didn't. I just came in. I did hear about it, though, and apparently it was eventful, wasn't it? It was 7-3, and then all sorts of stuff was happening in the decider.
Yeah. Hard to work out how Max has lost it, to be honest. But there we are. The people who have backed Mark Farnsworth and bought him in the Calcutta be over the moon. They'd have been writing off their money. 7-3 down.
It's a tough draw for Mark, to be honest. Obviously, he's played Jack first game.
But
loser to play Max.
Doesn't get any easier. He's got Mark Bull next.
Right, yeah.
Needs to cue this well. But he's got great cue power, good cue action.
Yeah, he times the ball really well, which means those shots like that, he can hit it quite softly and get the reaction on the cue ball, which, when you can hit it softer, it does make the pocket play a little bit bigger.
So, first rights to Craig, 1-0. Ben Tanner's beaten Martin Hazel 3-2. Josh Kane's 3-1 up against Neil Wren. A local boy, Liam White, is beating Sean Story 3-2. That's over on the other stream table where Dan Davey and Jordan Shepherd are doing the commentary.
Yeah, Liam's a local player. Sort of grew up when I was playing English 8-ball. I used to practice with Liam a little bit, and he's only a little guy. He's only about 5'2" or something, and he looks about 12. But he's got one of the biggest breaks I've ever seen. And if you maybe switch over and have a quick look at that, it's definitely worth having a look at the way he breaks.
Yeah, it's incredible.
His technique
Generates
is
so
really
much power.
good. Yeah, he does. He sort of drives his arm and his body through. So for anyone looking the tips a way to improve your break, I would definitely recommend watching Liam White's technique. I think it helps that because he is quite short, you know, he's a little bit sort of lower down to the table, but if you just watch the way he drives his arm through it, it is a very, very good technique.
Seb Webb 3-2 up against Ben Lewis. Brian Halcrow against is 2-0 against Ryan Fleming. Cole Bedford's losing to Ross Smith 5-4. Scott Gillespie 3-0 against Matt Schofield. And Dean Wilson's 4-2 up against Matt Brealey.
Talking of breaks, I was just going to say there that for when I said when Neil used to play World Rules, the tactical side of it was one of his strong points. The break has always definitely been one of his weak points. I was just about to say that as he screwed Strachan off there. And he has worked a lot on it. You know, he understands that the break isn't and wasn't one of his strong points, and he has tried to work on it. If you watch the next time he breaks, we could maybe get you a slow-mo or a replay of it on his next break. But what he actually does is he's almost got like a stutter at the top of his backswing. So as he pulls the cue back, where you would have a pause on a normal shot, he almost pauses at the top of his backswing, and then almost to me at times looks like he's got the yips a little bit, where he then struggles from the top of the backswing to drive through the break.
Yeah.
It has got a lot better, but it did get to the point where he had like a pause at the top of that backswing for almost sort of two or 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Which
And
almost looked like the bit of the yips where he's struggling to let go of the cue.
And then you lose momentum, you lose your
Well,
power,
your timing,
everything.
yeah, exactly. And he did it a little bit on that break, but the next time maybe we can watch it a little bit. Where if you watch the contrast to that, the way someone like Craig Marsh breaks, who has got a big sledgehammer over break.
Ben Forty was unlucky yesterday. He got pushed to the loser's side by Ben Davis, having been 10-6 up. He's fighting his way now through the loser's section. He's 5-1 up against Mike Clifford. Scott Muscat and Joe Prince are 2 each. And Lee Washbrook's beating Leo Boomer 4-1. Rich Wharton, who I would imagine is quite hungover this morning because he was having a good session last night. It's not affecting him. He's 2-1 up against Ian Duffy.
Yeah, I did catch a bit of the dribble he was talking in the bar, to be honest.
Dear me. He caught me and he was absolutely chewing my ear off. I had one of those days yesterday, you know, sort of slept for 2 hours, drove for 3.5 hours, commentated for about 14 hours, and then went in the bar and had to listen to Rich non-stop for about an hour. Couldn't get away.
If Carlsberg did days, right?
He saw me this morning and he said, I don't know what I said last night, but I know it's a load of rubbish, so I'm sorry.
Yeah. So 2-0. Obviously, this is the losers' side, so it is only race to 8. So 2-0 is a bit more sort of important for Neil than it would be race to 8 on the winner's side. Race to 11, sorry, on the winner's side. And I think with someone like Craig, who breaks like he does and plays like he does, that you've got to be careful that you don't obviously let him get too far ahead, for one. And two, you know, someone like Neil, you've got to be careful that Craig doesn't almost bully him a little bit, and, you know, bully him in the sense of, obviously on the table, I mean by that, but with his power play, you know, he breaks big, clears up quick, pops balls quite easily, and it's quite easy to get intimidated by that sort of player.
Yeah, I was just talking to Jordan Shepherd before, and he said that Craig's got a good record against Neil. Craig was just odds against. I think he was. Neil was the bookie's favourite. So
if we just have a quick look at the break here, sorry Nick, just the way that he hits the break here. You see there, look, there was no hesitation or pause at the top of the backswing, and if that was the perfect camera angle, that when he broke, he drove the cue through in a straight line, almost a tip finish, maybe almost close to the blue spot.
Yeah.
So he just proves that he's driving all the power through. He's losing no power up in the air, no power off to the side.
Yeah.
And
straight back, straight forward. It just lifts his head slightly just to make room for the arm to come through.
That's right. Yeah. and he flushed the front ball, hence why the cue ball come back in a straight line.
Yeah.
So the only way you can go in off is if he gets kicked.
And you know, look at that spread. Most of the balls are at the top of the table. There's only 5 balls in the bottom half. Huge spread.
Yeah, and I don't know if he tried to play that off the red or if he can play the plant here. So
Yeah.
I think maybe he did try to pot it clean, and he can now play the 3-ball plant.
Yeah, just needs to be a bit wary in where that red goes.
Well, the good thing about this 3-ball plant is he wants to hit the yellow on the right-hand side as we look, which means the red will then go towards the pocket.
Yeah.
Like that.
That's a great shot.
Would have preferred it not in.
Yeah.
Because I don't... Oh, no, he's looking, he's okay. And I think that, yeah, I can just see that the other red there that looks like his only bad red does actually pass the yellow into the middle.
Yeah.
So these couldn't be easy. Really just played this with the tracer right-hand side like that. Played it nicely. And although it's early days, he does look good. And it is alarm bells already for Neil. It's 3-0 first to 8, and Craig looks confident.
Yeah, when Craig's timing the ball well, playing well, I mean, really, it's just a great player to watch.
Does make it look easy at times. Like you say, when he's playing well and he's confident.
And there you get to see it's just a nice cue action, isn't it? I mean, we were talking about cue actions yesterday with Chris Melling, and he's obviously got a really lovely cue action. We were talking about Shane Thompson, somebody else who's got a really lovely, you know, slow, steady, methodical, lovely pause on the backswing, and he just. We were watching him play Lakin, and the difference between the two players, where Shane times the ball so sweetly and he can screw it the length of the table with barely any power, where Lakin is smashing it much harder. And you see there with Craig, similar cue action.
Yeah, everybody's got their own style and their own way, and I actually think he has got a good cue action. Shane Thompson, I think he's got a good cue action that would suit the Chinese 8-ball game, actually, because he hits the ball softly but gets a lot of reaction. And when hitting the ball softly, it means that you make the pocket play a little bit bigger, where in the contrast to that, like you said, someone like Lakin, who's almost clubbing everything, hitting it quite hard, you have got to be a little bit more accurate, but everyone has their own way, and Craig is definitely effective the way that he plays. He can really, when he gets it going, he can go on one. He can have as much firepower as anybody when he gets it going, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, he won his first game yesterday. I think it was 11-1. He just blew the guy off the table. He really struggled against Shane, but he'd been quite ill yesterday. He was up most of the night with some kind of bug. But he was hoping just to come back fresh today. I wouldn't be surprised if he can get over his sickness to see him go quite deep in this tournament. He's back playing, I think, in the 4 o'clock session. What we will just quickly do is we'll have a look forward at that winners section and what games we've got coming up, because there's some really good matchups.
And Neil hit that break much better split. And as sometimes happens when you're losing and things are not quite going your way, things go a little bit awkward. And things might have gone a little bit awkward here in the sense of he wants to take yellows because they're unmissable, but I don't know if he can pot the first one. The one that's just to the left of the black doesn't go into the middle, I don't think. There you can see it doesn't pass into the middle, so he's had to go reds. And he is very good at doubling the ball, so he won't be too worried about having to play a double on the red that's to the left, but he would rather have gone yellows where they were unmissable. So he will play the double now because he is very good at them. On another day, you know, the yellow sort of is half an inch further up, and that one passes into the middle, and they're unmissable. But
Great double.
yeah, he is good at doubles, and he's still got to play a bit of a shot here because the red is, you can see his face, he just winced a little bit there, because the red is obviously the bottom side of the pocket there.
Yeah, he needs to get somewhere down near the black, doesn't he?
And if he's straight, he's going to have to screw on and off the side cushion.
Yeah.
That's why he just sort of took his medicine and decided to play it long. I think that's the right choice of shot, actually. Couldn't really go wrong. If you try and land on it in the middle and somehow end up snookering yourself,
yeah. I think that's clever shot from Neil, because that was a shot. You know, it's got a degree more difficulty, but one that he'd certainly expect to
he
get.
stayed down on that red. I think he thought it was a little bit wide, but you see, I was saying, we're talking about the contrast of cue actions and the way of striking the cue ball there. Maybe someone like Lakin would have hit that a lot harder, like a punchy stun shot, which means maybe if he hit it there where Neil hit it by punching it, it may have rattled and stayed. But because he played it softly and timed it well, it does give the pocket a little bit more of a chance of taking it.
So we'll have a quick look through the winners section, and we'll pause on a couple of games just to get some ideas. So Liam Dunster's through against Ben Rowland. That'll be an interesting game. Ryan Pisani against Gaz Royds. Adam Davis came through a tough game last night, Hill. He's playing Arfin Dad, who's been flying through the tournament so far. John McAllister, who's been making it look easy, is playing Harjeet Singh, and Harjeet had a really good win last night. I think he pushed Tom Cousins into the losers section. We also have Craig Lakin against Mick Hill. So that's I mean, Craig's going to have to be on the top of his game for that one. Yannick Beaufils against Craig Brown. Jason Shaw's playing Carl Sutton.
That's a good game.
Yeah, it is a great game.
I commentated on Carl Sutton's match last night with Craig Waddingham, and it was a really high standard at the start. The first 6 or 7 frames got a bit scrappy in the middle, then finished off being a really high standard, and he played quite well, Carl, in that match.
Toby Bolt's playing John Rowe. The next one's a good game. Rob Chilton against Jordan Church. This should be a cracking game.
Is that in the winner's side, that match?
That is on the winners, yeah. These are winner's side, yeah. Sean Chipperfield, Stevie Dempsey. Ben Davis against Gareth Hibbert. There's 2 IPA adversaries, so they'll know each other's game quite well. The one that we're going to have on the main arena table is the cracking game between Phil Harrison and Chris Melling. And that's the draw of the comp so far for me.
Well, that one is certainly worthy of any final of any competition, isn't it?
I mean, incredible. Carla Donohue's got Tony Halpin, who came through late last night against Jamie Graham. Ian Alley's got Dean Richardson. Dean beat Dan McVicker in a Hill game last night. Dylan Leary against Jimmy Croxton, and Ronan McCarthy against Clint Jansen. So that's another really big game. I can tell you the stream games will be Ronan against Clint, Carl Sutton against Jason Shaw, Mick Hill against Lakin, and on the main arena, Phil Harrison against Chris Melling. So
missed that plant because he purposely played it cushion first. If he'd have just had to pot that and his life depended on the pot and nothing else mattered, he would never have missed it. He missed it because he tried to get it cushion first because he wanted the yellow to pop out. Obviously world rules, so no option of the skill shot. So when something like that does happen, you do gain an advantage sometimes from making a mistake and covering a pocket at world rules.
He's got second prize. Neil's got these 2 reds.
Yeah, the red doesn't pass the yellow, as you can see there. And it is a big advantage being good at doubles because he's just flicked the red out of the way there, so this now doubles, and at the same time he's going to kick the other red out with a cue ball. So I've bigged him up at being good at doubles, and he hasn't missed one yet, but this one is a bit trickier because he's got to back double it, and also he's got to concentrate on kicking the red with the cue ball.
Quite interesting watching him line that one up. It's not often you see the player, you know, he's kind of just judging the line with his cue.
Commentator's curse, but like I say, it wasn't Wasn't straightforward.
Yeah, tough. So it should be fairly simple now for Craig. Fairly dot-to-dot finish, isn't it?
Yeah, he'll play the cue ball down the right-hand side of the table here because he'll play on an option of 2 balls. He'd like to land on the one in the middle of the table next, but if he comes too far, he'll be on the other one. Like that. That's perfect. Like I said, he'd like to be on that one. And the reason he'd like to be on that one is because the black doesn't go into the left corner. So he wants to leave these 2 balls at the bottom end of the table until the last, just purposely because the black only goes into that middle.
He's got just the right angle here, just to
Yeah,
screw across
perfect.
the face of the red.
Yeah. See that little dabby cue action? So he hits it softly, gets the cue ball to bite quickly, but also stop quickly. A little bit more difficult than it looked, that shot. It may just look to people watching that maybe don't play too much that was just an easy shot, but it was a little bit harder than it looked because he did have to get the cue ball to bite. As quick as that, it's 4-1. Having played a pretty slow first frame, the next sort of 3 or 4 frames have took as much time as the first one.
Martin Hazel, having been 3-2 down, is now 5-3 up against Ben Tanner. Josh Kane 4-2 up against Neil Wren. Liam White 4-3 against Sean Story. Seb Webb's in danger. He's 5-3 down against Ben Lewis, having been 3-2 up. Brian Halcrow, he had a tough game last night against Carl O'Donoghue and got pushed into the loser's side. I
spoke to him about that match, actually, Brian, and he said Carl was brilliant. He actually said that he felt he hadn't made a mistake with a finish that he felt he should have got. He said he felt like he didn't miss anything and still lost the match.
Yeah. I
think it's about time that sort of Carl O'Donoghue went deep into a tournament. I know he plays a lot of money matches. He actually beat Clint Ianson last week for money, which is a big result for him. I know it was at home and they've got the return leg.
Yeah,
it's the 1st of September.
I agree with that, and I was quite interested to hear him in his interview last night. He was talking about his attitude to the game and the fact that he feels he's underachieved in a lot of the tournaments that he's played in, and what he's actually trying to do is take a little bit of his money match mentality into the tournament, just from a perspective of the mental strength and the focus, keeping that focus all the way through and never letting his concentration dip.
Yeah, the problem is that that's why you only get, certain players, classed as the great players, the ones that consistently win tournaments, and that's exactly what it's about. It's about being consistent. Now, Carl O'Donoghue is, of course, capable of beating anybody in a race to 11. He's capable of beating anybody 11-2. Yeah. But then he's also capable of losing to anybody 11-2 the match after.
Okay, and when you look at the most consistent players, I mean, for me, one of the most consistent players ever, obviously Phil Harrison, and he's Mr. Reliable. If you had to pick a player just in a bubble, not whether he's on form or just in a bubble, you had to pick one player to play for your life, you couldn't really pick anyone better than Phil Harrison. It's just
he is one of the most prolific club tournament winners ever, Phil, and
just brings his focus every time, doesn't he? He's going to turn up.
Yeah, and it's no good, in those club tournaments, you're playing 1st to 5, 1st to 6. It's no good playing one of those matches and doing 5 or 6 from the break, and then the next match missing your first 5 or 6 finishes, because obviously, yes, you played brilliant the first match, but the next match you're going home. So it is about consistency and making sure that you keep that level, match in, match out, and you don't play matches straight after each other. There is breaks. There can be an hour, there can be 2 hours sometimes that you can play the next day. So it is all about consistency, and the top players in any sport, the consistency levels are much higher. And I think most players in this tournament know that they're all capable of playing well in any given match, but it's about doing it match after match, tournament after tournament.
The thing for me about Phil is the professionalism he brings, because if you tell Phil that he needs to be a half an hour before his match, he'll turn up 35 minutes before his match is going to start. And then when he's finished, I don't know what he does, but he certainly doesn't stay in the club. I've never seen him drink an alcoholic drink. He just seems to go back to his hotel room, he chills out, he refocuses, and then comes back again, and he'll turn up 35.
He treats it like a job, you know. He's here to win money at the end of the day. He's here to win the tournament. He's here to win money, and he treats it.
Whereas other players treat it as a weekend away with the lads, and they get drunk and they wake up in the morning, and you know they're hungover and they turn up 5 minutes late for their game, and you know we've already seen it this morning.
Yeah, it's about what you do off the table for sure. Neil would be one of those players, though. He does everything right, you know. He doesn't really drink, and you know he doesn't really go out, you know, partying in between matches. He'd do the right thing. He's got a table at home, so he's able to practice as much as he wants.
And Chris Melling's another one. Never drinks when he's playing. Likes a drink, likes a party, but when there's a tournament on, you know, he wouldn't sort of have a couple of pints and think, you know, just. When he's out, he'll enjoy himself. Yeah,
when you're playing a tournament like this, you know, and the prestige and certainly the prize money that's now on offer, you know, that all does change. People's mentality does change. You've got to treat it more professionally. The more money that gets involved in the game, the higher the standard will be, because people are practicing more. People are treating it more like a job rather than just a hobby.
The Washbrook's 7-1 up against Leo Boomer now.
It's no shock if you look at what's happened to the darts over the years, where, you know, sort of in the 90s when they were playing for the sort of prize money that they're playing for in the pool world now, that, you know, no one really used to average over 100, and if somebody did, it would probably only be Phil Taylor, and it would be a huge thing if there was a 3-dart average of 100.
Yep.
Where now there's hardly a match you ever see with the top players where they don't average over 100.
And back in the day, you know, Jockey Wilson would have had about 6 pints delivered to him on the hockey during the match.
And that was exactly my point. Now they're playing for so much money. You know, all of the top 16 players. Well, all of the top 32, probably the top 64 players in the world at darts are all earning a very good living. The top boys are certainly earning a very good living. So they're all practicing 6 hours a day. They're all trying to do the right things. And it's no shock, because of the amount of money involved, that the standard has gone through the roof in the darts. And exactly the same thing would happen in the pool. You know, if there was tournaments every single week for 20, 30, 40, £200,000 to the winner like there is at darts, it wouldn't take long before you saw the standard rocket through the roof, because everybody would be practicing, everybody would quit the day jobs, the ones that have it, and they would be able to play pool full time like they have at the darts.
In some ways that's probably true of snooker as well, isn't it? I mean, in the days of Bill Werbenick and Cliff Thorburn, etc., you know, the prize money wasn't anywhere near as prolific as it was, and you know, Bill Werbenick used to famously drink an absolute couple gallons, and Cliff Thorburn used to sit on the stage with his gin and tonic or whatever he was. They were all known for it. Yeah,
the standard in every sport, you know, I think is gradually getting higher, and even, you know, on more likes of, you know, tennis, where all of the supplements and everything, the training that they do, the training regimes, the diet that they have, everything, the rackets, the equipment, everything gets better. And
so Neil, again with this one problem red, too much angle to try and get it out. Do you think he's going to be trying to double that again?
Yeah, he doesn't mind a double.
Well, he's got an angle here to knock it out if he wants to.
Well, he may have an angle. I don't think he's got an angle to knock it out, but he's got an angle to maybe drop onto the yellow, so he could maybe pot it and just drop onto the yellow and play it down the rail. Or he can maybe pot this with a bit of side and land on the one down the rail next. Yeah, he's gonna play the one down the right cushion first, and then try and land on. So he's effectively going to take his 2 hardest balls in the next 2 shots. He's going to play the one down the right cushion and then try and land on the one down the left cushion. Hit that nice.
Cued that beautifully well.
And he is a little bit short, but when you're playing shots, like I said before, you do have to work out, am I better off being a little bit too short or a little bit too hard? And in that instance, he was definitely better being too short because he had the option of the other 2 balls.
Can he hold this on the yellow for the...
Yeah, he will definitely play the one down the rail now.
Yeah.
He has to take it now because he isn't going to get... Sometimes you have to think, am I going to get in a better place than I already am here? And the answer in here was no. And he's played exactly the shot you said. It's actually worked out even better for him. He did play to cannon it full ball. He's cannoned it 3/4 ball, which has now left him with a perfect angle. 2 options: either land the left side of it so he can pop the black into the left corner, or you can land short so you can bump into the... He's landed the other side of it. He had an option to land short so he could just run into the yellow and land straight on the middle. So that couldn't really go wrong.
So, it's black to pull it back within 3. 5-2 is going to be a long battle for him to get back into this, especially
it is,
with
but
playing.
that was a must-win frame. 6-1, it was probably curtains. See the shot he played down the rail there, he hit that nice. And that's one of those again where he didn't hit it hard, he just sort of timed it.
Is there a, I mean, the shots down the rails for club players, probably some of the hardest shots to play. But the professionals, they just seem to, they seem to be able to pot them like it's just an open pot. Is there a knack to it, a certain pace, putting some slide on the ball to help it?
Yeah, there is. Like, for example, the first ball down the rail that he played there, he would have been playing with a trace of left-hand side on the cue ball to just turn the cue ball over, which then transfers a tiny little bit of side spin onto the object ball, which then just makes, you can see this shot he's playing here, he'll be playing this with a trace of left-hand side. And what that does is it just turns a little bit of side over onto the object ball. See there, see the cue ball, see the spots on the cue ball just spin to the side. That's just a little bit of left-hand side. Now, had that have been on the opposite side rail, he would have been playing that with a little bit of right-hand side, which again has the same effect. And when he played the other one up the cushion, he would have played that with a little trace of left-hand side as well. And most players play it like that. Even the snooker players, most of them play with a little bit of side. Mark Selby plays them shots with a bit of side. Ronnie plays them with a bit of side. One of the only people I know that doesn't play them with a bit of side is Ding Junhui. He would play everything plain ball, unless he has to, obviously. So
this is just about transferring that side onto the object ball. So it's
rotating in the way into the pocket. Yeah.
Because obviously, if it's rotating away, it's got a possibility of hitting the knuckle and pulling away from the pocket.
Yeah. So if it's rotating away and you hit the near knuckle first, when it hits that second knuckle, it wants to stay and go the opposite way.
Yeah.
If you get the side transferring with an inward spin, it effectively makes the pocket play a little bit bigger.
And are you looking to hit? Where's your point of aim? Is it the very back of the ball? Are you looking to hit between the ball and the cushion?
Yeah, it all depends on exactly where the ball is. Obviously,
so
if it's touching the cushion,
on the rail,
if it's touching the cushion, then obviously you want to connect with them at the same time.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's off the cushion, then it's always ball first.
And generally, you'd want to play it as a firm shot, like a stun shot, because I only ask because you see these guys, they absolutely cane them along the rail sometimes, and as I say, for club players, they're going to find that the most difficult shot to play.
Yeah, I think the way that Neil just hit both of those shots down the rail were exactly the right pace to play them. I mean, sometimes you obviously have to give them a bit more depending on what you're trying to do with the cue ball. That's a good shot there from Neil, by the way. And Yeah, depending on what you're trying to do with the cue ball, depends on exactly, how you would strike it. But, if you're just trying to pot the ball, then, yeah, it's just a matter of...
But you wouldn't necessarily roll them dead weight?
No, I wouldn't necessarily roll them dead weight, because obviously there's a lot of things can go wrong when you roll the ball.
Yeah.
It can go wrong with your backhand, because you can push it offline, you not push the cue through in a straight line. You can hit a finger mark, so... I personally like to drag balls, because it allows you to hit the ball a little bit harder initially to start with, and then obviously the backspin then kills the pace, transfers into a forward rotation, and allows you to hit it a little bit harder but effectively hit it softer. This is one of those shots here where he's got to play a little screw shot through the gap of the black and the red, and it's one of them where he has to time it but get the cue ball to stop.
Just too much angle to. He's just.
Oh, you see.
Yeah.
I said he's got to get the cue ball to bite quickly. He just didn't get it to bite. I actually thought he was going to get lucky and hit the red. But you can just come off the rail and flick it in.
He's been unlucky again.
For his next trick.
Yeah, there was just too much angle. He would have liked to have made dead straight on that previous shot we were talking about. Just too much angle, so he had to try and stun through the gap. And
that's where that cue action comes in, where you've got to get the cue ball to bite quickly, but get it to stop quickly. It is a much tougher shot. That's when I said before about when Craig had a similar shot a couple of frames ago. They are a little bit more difficult than they look when you've got to time it well, especially when you're under pressure and you're 5-2 down. So, first shot here, Craig will go for the one down the rail, and he will top through and play it as almost like a shot to nothing.
Yeah.
So he'll want the cue ball somewhere near the jaws of the pocket, which means if he misses it, you can see where he's putting his tip there. If he misses it, it means he snookers him.
There's a small margin for error as well, isn't there? He can run through almost to the pocket.
He might play this like a drag shot, look. There you go.
Yeah.
And
so it's a pretty much full ball snooker, and it's hampered cueing as well.
It's hampered cueing, and well, I think if he gets as close to the red on the side cushion with the cue ball, obviously without hitting the red, he may be able to clip the black into the middle. I think the black might go close to this right middle here. Just got it a bit too thin. I fancied him to get close with that. And that's why I said he had to get as close to the red as he possibly could, and that's why he hit it so hard to try and straighten it up.
And now a decent chance for Craig.
He's played a good shot, even though he's lost control of where the second red's gone. He won't be too worried about that. He was more worried about getting on this ball into the middle with a good angle, and he's got that.
Yeah, he was happy to compromise where the red was going.
Yeah, and he will play the red last, I think. So he may top down for it now, actually. He's got two choices. He can top forward and land on it now, or he can... And he wanted to be flat on the rail. He purposely landed there. Well, maybe not exactly flat, but he wanted an angle. He didn't want to be straight, and he's, in fairness, probably got a little bit too much of one.
Yeah, straight he could have held for the middle, but looks like he's probably going to have to stun up now. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Just looked like he was getting a bit close to the red, but it's perfect.
I was saying I commentated on the Carl Sutton game yesterday, and I was saying about players that are able to sort of win matches with no effort and almost come off the table and not feel like they've played. And I was referring in contrast to someone like maybe a Yannick Bofis that almost gives a pint of blood on every single shot. And, everything is just like his life. Even if the ball's over the hole, it's like his life depends on it. He goes through exactly the same shot routine. And I'm all for that, doing the same thing all the time. But, when it's done so deliberately and, he's queuing up 14 times to a ball over the hole, after you've won that match, even if you've won 8-1, 8-2, it almost feels like he's been through the mill. And
it's about mental strength, and there's only so much there.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can give.
So therefore, when he comes to the last 16, he comes to the quarterfinals, you almost just feel played out.
Yeah, he might have breezed through it. But he's still, he's still mentally drained.
Where he might then run into a Craig Marsh in the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
That almost is just fresh. He's he's been winning 11-2s, 11-3s, 11-5s, blowing people away with 5, 6, 7, 8 balls. And
you can look at Craig on the right of the screen there. I don't think he could be any more relaxed, because he looks like he was just about to nod off.
Yeah, and I think I'm not just talking about winning matches here. I'm talking about winning the tournaments. And to win tournaments, you do need to have that firepower and consistently almost blow people away without feeling like you've had to do too much, if you know what I mean. And I always found, tournaments that I'd won, that's how I'd felt. Where sometimes you have matches where you win 8, you'd win 8-6, you'd win 8-7, you'd win 8-5, and you get to the quarterfinals and you'd feel like you were just sick of the sides of the table and felt like you'd been playing for a month. So I do think it is a big thing to have in your locker, that you can blow people away, and people like Craig and Ben Davies, the Tom Cousin, them sort of people, it's no shock that they consistently win tournaments, because they do blow people away quite quickly.
You could probably make a case for both sets here, but I imagine he's going to go reds.
He'll go reds, yeah.
And that's really because of the red on the top left, and also the yellow tied up on the right hand side.
Yeah, it's because of that, and he could play the yellow off the red and move it out of the way, but it's mainly because of the red over the left corner. All the red's pot, so he doesn't have to play a cannon anywhere. And the one that's a little bit awkward at the bottom of your screen there, the one next to the yellow, he can, to the left of your screen, he can play that long up past the black, plant it onto the one over the hole if he wants. Not
just
good.
A bit low on this.
Yeah, not a good positional shot. Well, he played a bad position shot and he actually finished perfect. He could just drop it in and... And had Neil not have missed that last finish, this would be for 5-4 and right back in the match.
But even at 6-3 with the break next, if he can finish these, which he looks odds on to do, if he can get a break condition, the next the pressure will shift slowly back onto Craig's shoulders. Craig is very much a confidence player. If you can get under his skin and rattle him, then you've always got yourself a chance.
Just a quick one on the shot that Neil just played there. The closer you can get the cue ball to the object ball, the easier this positional shot is. See, because he got it so close, he was literally able to put it on a penny, where he would put it with his hand.
Yeah.
Had the cue ball been closer to the right-hand side of the table, that positional shot was 10 times harder.
So 3 frames in it now, and it's 6 frames to 3.
10 Neil to break, trailing 6 frames to 3. Time running.
Must-win frame this for Neil. You see that little stutter there? That time he sort of almost stuttered at the top of the backswing. He sort of started the downswing and then sort of stopped up maybe an inch into the downswing. So that one was a little bit different.
Yeah, we'll grab a look at that. We'll capture it next break.
I think he'd like to go yellows, and he'd like to pop this yellow over the pocket first shot and screw the cue ball at the rail and flick his bad ball out. But I don't know if it's a bit too thin.
Yeah, there's a bit too much angle, I think.
See, he's looking at it, and he's. I think it is there, but you've got to time it really well.
Yellow's nominated.
Signing against, yeah, trying to find himself a better angle to do that.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that shot because he can get back up there and leave that angle. If he didn't feel it was on, then he didn't feel it was on, and it's not worth risking miscuing because you're trying to get hold of the cue ball.
You're just asking for the rack to be removed.
If it was available, though, on any table, it would have been this table on the number 10 cloth because it is the most responsive cloth there is. It does grip more than any other.
Grips really quickly as well.
Yeah. That's why I think maybe the shot was on, you see, but sometimes it's just the way you see it. If you don't fancy it, you don't fancy it. This time it definitely is on.
Yeah, much better angle.
He sort of just dropped his arm there a little bit as though he's come too far again, but surely this is perfect this time. Oh, it has to be perfect.
Because he can nick a bit of the pocket as well, can't he?
So he wants to catch like that. You see, if he catches ball and cushion at the same time, it means they both come away. So it could not have played that better, and that wasn't just a case of I'm going to hit this as hard as I can and hope. He purposely played to hit ball and cushion there at the same time.
Yeah, the thing was, he couldn't play it with a massive amount of pace either, because then you're not going to get the grip, are you?
Exactly. The harder you hit it, the longer it takes for the cue ball to grip. So you can't hit it too hard because you want it to bite quickly. Played to stun onto that red there, and he slipped through the gap. But it's still okay. One thing I do like about Neil's game is he never tries to just clatter into anything. He never tries to just whack anything. Everything he tries to do, he tries to work out, what's happening. He has got a very good pool brain. His patterns are very good. And he always tries to play a shot. He always tries to work out, even when he's playing little clever cannons on, right, if I cannon this ball here, this will flick that there, and that'll go there. He never just gets down and whacks into anything. He is very controlled.
Very good at giving himself options as well, and he plays into areas and doesn't limit his options. And
that's why when he plays well, he's very, very good, because he doesn't rely on any luck. He's not clattering into balls. They're not all flying around the table all the time. Everything's sort of meant and everything's controlled. And when he gets it right, he's very, very good.
So pulls another one back, and that's what we were talking about. It's just that tiny bit of pressure back on Craig's shoulders now, because this break becomes important. If he goes dry here, then it's back on serve. And from being in an extremely commanding position, Neil's now snapping at his heels. So for Craig, it's all he can do is just try and keep doing what he's been doing.
Yeah, and in all fairness to Craig, he hasn't really made any mistakes.
No.
I don't think he's lost a frame that he shouldn't have lost by making a mistake anyway. So, I don't think he could have won any more than 6 frames.
Yeah, I think he'll still be very comfortable.
And that is important in your mindset. It's if you're 6-4 up and you feel like you should have already been out the door and won sort of 8-1, 8-2, is a different mindset to if you feel like you're playing well and you've took every chance you've had. That'll definitely be Neil's mindset at the minute. although he'll be happy he's won the last 2 frames, he'll feel as though he should maybe have been 6-4 ahead because he did get the first chance in a few of those frames. And it is a tough school, this, by the way. It's not just, that's not a criticism, but, you know, they are playing to a really high level, and making 1 or 2 mistakes in a match can be the difference between winning and losing.
Quite interesting seeing Craig go quite so wide with that break.
Did he break with his hand on the table then? I think he put his hand on the table for some reason.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he broke really wide. When he put it that wide, I thought for a second he was going to cut break, but
he was having success the other way. I don't understand for the life of me why he's put his hand on the table, because when you put your hand on the table, you're restricted to how far you can pull the cue back.
Yeah.
You're restricted to the backswing. And when you're restricted on the backswing, then obviously you're restricted on the power.
Yeah, he's not really been doing anything wrong with his break, so why change it? And as I mentioned a second ago, that was a key break. And going dry there, as I say, if Neil can find a clearance, then it's...
That's baffled me, that. I mean, obviously I presume that he's deliberately thought about putting the cue ball there. The only thing I can think is maybe he's just subconsciously done it. I don't know. I don't understand that at all, because he was hitting him well and making balls from where he was breaking from the middle with his hand on the rail.
And he's put the ball down wide, and then moved it wider. Like I say, it just looked like almost he was going to cut break.
I was saying also yesterday, and I was talking to Jason Shaw about it, and I think that you make more balls off the break on these tables with this short rack when you don't hit them at full pace.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to hit them at 100%.
I think that was a bit of a revelation during one of the matches yesterday, the Shane Thompson-Lakin game. Shane Thompson was breaking really well, and kind of a 3/4 pace break, and Chris Melling said, I really like that, maybe that's the way to break with this.
I think it is.
And he was kind of learning from watching.
I think it's the way to break. I've watched, from what I've watched, this event a little bit, and I watched the last event, and Jason Shaw was of the same opinion as well, that the bit that he'd played, that it definitely wasn't the way to hit the break at 100%. They almost, when you hit them too hard, because they do track to the pockets directly with this short rack anyway, they almost seem to just knock each other out of the way if you hit them too hard somehow.
So that was a nice shot from Neil, but he's going to have to pull off another great shot here.
He is, but he's going to play it where he sort of knows that if he covers the pocket and gets the cue ball over to the left-hand side of the table, he's still in a strong position where the yellows are.
So this is one he is going to be playing pretty much dead weight.
And the reason he's asked to move the short rack is because he's going to be obviously bridging over the yellow and the black there, and I think his hand or his fingers would have been on the rack, and he doesn't want it slipping.
There was a really interesting point in one of the matches, one of the early matches, I can't remember which one it was, but someone was on a clearance and they were on the black, and they actually had their hand resting on the shark rack, and they moved their hand and the shark rack twisted, and there were 2 yellows just either side of it, and he was nailed on to make the frame. He had quite a simple black, and I couldn't believe he actually did it, because had the rack moved and moved one of the yellows, it was going to be a foul, and it just never asked the ref to move it. And then afterwards, I think it just asked the ref and said, well, why didn't you move the rack? And the ref said, well, you never asked me to. So. And
they are plastic and they are slippy, so if you've got your fingers on, your fingers on it, your hand is the foundation of the shot.
Yeah.
And
there'd be literally yellows just either side of it, and you saw the rack, saw the rack twist on as they moved their hand.
Neil played a really good shot, the shot before at the rail, to drop it in dead weight, and he nearly played a really good shot there as well. And I was saying before about how when you're playing a shot, you've got to think to yourself, do I want to be, if I'm not going to be perfect, do I want to be a little bit too hard or a little bit short? And in that instance, he needed to be a little bit too hard again.
Is he looking at the double here? Confused, isn't he?
Well,
but can he not play this and cannon the red towards the...
I think he's worried about where it's going to go. I think he's because he knows
black.
He's good at doubles and he's almost dead straight on it. Oh dear, that's slid off.
It's gone. He's fluked it.
Oh.
Is it going to drop? No, not quite. Well, that's a huge miss in the context of the game, because these are fairly ploppings for Craig. Wow, that's a big swing. obviously 7-4 and 6-5. A massive miss.
Yeah, and you obviously do expect him to get them, but you've got to make sure you keep hold of the cue ball, because it's the 2 yellows that are at the bottom here that are the issue. But
I only mentioned the pot and the cannon because it just seemed like more. But you're guaranteed to make the pot.
yeah,
You're guaranteed to make a cannon. Okay, you're not guaranteed where it comes out, but at least
Mm.
you're going to make the pot. Whereas the doubles probably 8.5 out of 10. So
I think especially on a brand new table where with brand new cushions, with brand new cloth on the cushions, that it is so hard to judge the slide. The angle doesn't come off at a natural angle, and even when you're so good at doubles and you know it's going to slide, it's hard to sort of tell yourself to aim. And I did to aim in a certain place, and I did say you had to keep hold of the cue ball there.
He's under hit that by a margin.
And yeah, and I don't understand why why he wanted to leave this ball in the middle of the table anyway. You know, you have to clear the areas. Surely you have to clear the top end first there.
Yeah.
Else the cue ball's just basically doing laps.
Yeah, well, he's going to have to put in some mileage with the cue ball now.
I think he's finished with a horrible little angle on this as well, because I don't think he can nip it and screw past the red.
No. And topping it is that needs real power, and the angle's going off. Wow, he's over.
And that's what happens when you've got the cue ball doing laps like that. I mean, he's potted that with a load of left-hand side, and
he's actually had a result
and
he's
gone 4 rails. Yeah, I think he's had a result, but I think he knew that he'd have to be unlucky not to have some sort of shot. He obviously wanted to be on the bottom yellow, but
cued that nicely.
yeah, was worried about going too far, so he's gone 2 less, but still expect him to get it because he can get to half of the cue ball. That is not completely hampered, and he's got it, and because he overcut it means that the cue ball's bounced away further than it should have, and the black doesn't go into the left corner here, which makes a big difference. He's going to have to screw it around and pop the black into the right corner.
I guess he had a couple of options there, didn't he? He could have played it with left side and checked the ball up, or play it with right. But playing it with right's helping the object. Well, playing it with left makes the shot infinitely harder.
Yeah.
So Martin Hazel's beaten Ben Tanner. Josh Kane's 5-4 up against Neil Wren. That is on one of the other stream tables. You can watch any of the 4 live games on the Beard Productions channel on YouTube. Please, while you're there, do subscribe to the page so you will get notifications when we go live through the day. There's some great clashes coming up throughout. Seb Webb back on level terms with Ben Lewis at 6 each. Ryan Fleming's 4-3 up on Brian Halcrow. That's been a bit of a ding-dong. Never more than a frame or 2 between them. Scott Gillespie 5-3 against Matt Schofield, but that's been 5-3 for quite a time, so you'd have to wonder if they're tied up in a tactical battle. Scott Gillespie, not known for being a tactician and not really known the world rules. After he lost on the stream table yesterday, he was in a conversation with Lee Kendall about the tactical side of the game. They were stood at the table for a good 20 minutes after the match, where Lee was, they were talking about when to DF and having balls over a bag and balls around it, and the advantages you can get from it. So he's really unfamiliar with the tactical side of the game. Scott Muscat's trailing Joe Prince 6-2, and Rich Wharton 6-3 up against Ian Duffy.
Neil's dry, and he's going to be shaking his hand in 3 or 4 minutes' time, because both of these are easy.
Yeah, it just shows what a massive swing that last frame was.
Quite steep into the ball, Craig. What I mean by that is, you notice that shot there, that the butt of his cue was quite high up, almost like he was playing a little swerve shot, and you can see there, look, he's a little bit higher, and that's okay. But the problem with that is it's easier to flick a little bit of unwanted side on, and if you do flick a bit of unwanted side on, because of the butt of the cue is raised up, it means that you're going to swerve effectively swerve the cue ball offline before it gets to the object ball.
Wow. He's got away with it, I think, but goodness, that could have gone wrong. The one thing very noticeable, I don't know if he has got away with it.
No, he hasn't. He's got to pot the long one if he can see it.
Yeah.
And if he can see it, he's going to have to raise the butt of the cue for this shot.
The one thing I do notice about Craig, he rarely hits anything apart from the bottom of the cue ball. Even when he plays what's essentially a top spin shot, he's playing it.
He aims at the top, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He aims at the top of the cue ball a lot, and then he obviously does play some shots with top spin, but he just comes up at the last minute and strikes the top of the cue ball.
Yeah.
So he effectively isn't aiming. He isn't aiming the feathers, the strokes at exactly where he's going to hit the cue ball.
No. Which seems quite odd. I mean, when you see him address, he's addressing the bottom of the cue ball every time.
Scott Gillespie's a little bit like that as well. Had to turn that over with a little bit of side, and now he is perfect. He'll just play this with a trace of left-hand side and just drift up past that red. So, got to make sure you get hold of the cue ball here to get it to bite past the red.
Yeah, his aiming point will be somewhere around about the top of the line that you see on the table. Yeah, anywhere along that line, perfect.
And that's a pretty good performance, to be fair, from Craig.
Yeah, really
Neil missed some chances, and will be disappointed with how he played. But Craig didn't really do much wrong in that match at all, and I think he probably had 8 chances and won 8 frames.
Yeah. So it's Neil Raybone. We say goodbye to him until event 3. Craig Marsh progresses through on the losers' side. I'm not sure who's coming up next on the string table. I'll just have a quick look and see if that's been decided yet. Table, what am I looking for? Table 16, aren't we? Mark Boyle against Mark Farnsworth. That's hardly a surprise. So Mark Boyle against Mark Farnsworth coming up at 12:30. I mean, that's another game that would pretty much grace any final. So, as we mentioned, this losers side absolutely littered with talent. So there's a car crash in there. We'll be back in around about 25 minutes with that action. See you soon. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Just coming back with you guys. I think we may try and catch Craig Marsh for an interview, so stick around for that. He'll be in the studio in just a couple of minutes.
And we've got Craig Marsh in the studio with us. Craig, well done. It's a tough match, that one.
Yeah, well, Neil's a great player, and you know exactly what you're going to get with him every time you play him. Like he's very steady, but I think I had the better of the chances, to be honest, in the end.
I mean, you've had a tough draw. You had Jimmy. I mean, 2 local players now. I mean, 2 very good local players. You had Jimmy Croxton, who beat you in the winner's side.
Yeah.
How did that go for you?
He played really well. He ran the first 3. I had a dry break, and he ran the first 3. And I more or less done the next 5, and then he done the next lot. I had a couple of shots, and that was it. No, a couple of dry breaks, and I was end of really. He played really well.
So
really
I mean,
well.
you can't hold yourself up to any
No.
problems for that one. And this one, you played Neil, so tough draws for you, really.
Yeah, definitely. I played really well there, actually, because I've struggled a little bit lately. Well, for about 18 months I've been really poor, so I was trying to concentrate and sort of stay in the moment out there. But yeah, I played all right in the end.
You missed the first event because your hand.
Yeah.
So is that all back?
Yeah, well, I can play pool, but I can't play golf. That's the downside.
Right. Okay, well, we're all right for this event.
We're all right for this event.
Well, no, I mean, well done. You're through to the second round, the loser side,
Yeah.
and you've only got to get to the last 8, and it's wiped out. Everybody's on an even keel, so
Yeah.
you keep
Yeah.
winning. That's what
That's
you
it.
do.
Just keep winning one match at a time, I think, because there's a lot of matches now I got to come back
There
from.
is.
So I'll take it one match at a time and see how we go. If I play like that, I got a chance.
Okay, well done. See you
Cheers.
in the next
Thanks,
round.
Lee. Cheers.
All right. Okay, that's that match out of the way. There'll be another stream match coming up in about 10 minutes' time, and we'll see you shortly.